Welcome back to our special show, the Axis Capital View. We have been speaking to the three biggies of Axis Capital on their forthcoming conference and on their view on the state of the markets. Well, Dharmesh, you spoke about transformational themes as the theme of your conference. Dharmesh, tell us about it. What are the transformational themes that you are exploring in the conference?
Well, as I tell you, we are, as a house, we are very bullish on this whole digital transformation which India will go. If you remember, Latha, when the voice calls had dropped, the rates had dropped for voice call from 16 rupees to 5 paisa and 10 paisa.
Yes.
You had a huge boom in the country. Yes. I think we're going to see a similar thing in the data side. When the data prices crash and when the 4G platforms are installed in by the Reliance Jios of the world and Vodafones and Airtels, you're going to see a transformational change on how business will be done on the internet or on the digital platform. So it's not only about, e-commerce companies, it's also about banks, about large companies, on logistics. All of this will benefit from the data reform. And this will go deep inside the country, not only to the urban India. So the kind of impact which you saw on the voice calls in early telecom days, we are just going to witness the same kind of happening in the next 1 or 2 years.
So the bet will be on telecom?
The bet will be on all the ancillaries who are going to provide on the digital space. So it can be telecom, it can be content providers, it can be banks. When look at nobody goes to a branch now. Everybody wants to do their transactions online. And imagine this goes into rural areas later on. That will be transformational.
Anirban, what are your investors telling you about the banking sector itself? I mean, on the face of it, 45 banks is becoming 66 banks. 21 banks more, that is 50% more competition. In almost any sector, that will mean thinning of margins. So, would you not worry about the banking space? Would not everyone's margins be impacted?
So it's not a margin is not going to impact for the true performing bank. This is the bank which is backed by the technology driven, who are efficient bank. For them it is an opportunity. And if you look at it, how the governor has done it, it's very nicely all segment that he has structured it properly. So there is a representation of SME segment that who will be focused only SME segment, where large sector bank is not able to reach. There is a bank for the payment bank where the mainly a technology driven. So they will concentrate only payment solutions. So they are not giving that advance to anybody. Neither they will be their investment will be government securities and all this. Even their deposit will be the insurance backed. So they are protecting that investor money for that. But side by side also they are also catering to that all segment uniformly. So every segment who will be real performer, real technology driven, efficient, their margin will be intact. So there will be healthy competition will really bring out.
You don't think the top private sector banks are in danger?
I don't think there's any challenge of any top private sector bank.
In fact, the volumes will just go up, especially, and then the men will be separated from the boys. So clearly going to benefit with the whole technology space where they can reach today's date where PSU banks are and they have not been able to reach. So clearly there will be a huge benefit whoever is using technology. And the new bank or an old bank.
And another thing is that a lot of unbanked population will come to the bank's gambit, which is very, very important. So India has a huge base. So we have not touched 50% of
Would that benefit, say, consumer companies, FMCG? I mean, they are the ones who don't seem to be seeing a volume pickup. Are you expecting FMCG to be benefited?
Definitely, because it's a comprehensive growth, because it's not that one sector will this one. Because the moment you reach that maximum segment of the country, and particularly rural segment which is untouched and all, so there's a huge scope of opportunity.
How would you interpret transformational in the digital space? Which are the stocks or sectors?
When you talk about banks, first thing to remember is India is underserved compared to the rest of the world. So it's like when I read a book, am I competing with some other book? I'm not. One book leads me to read another. So what happens, these are all different segments, like different books.
But so the pie grows bigger.
No, it's not just the pie. I'm saying one is leading to another. So it's not just the pie getting bigger. I'm saying these are all different ways of convenience. Therefore, it will lead you into greater profits to the guys who are the big boys.
Okay.
And it's not that these new gen banks and the smaller ones will not make money. They will also make money, but what will happen is they will lead you into the main banks. I think that's the overall picture. I think one sort of caveat that I need to give in overall sense is I think investors should not get caught in any cross currents. What I mean by that is when your economy and markets are going to be not incremental but transformative, there will be a lot of times when you're moving against the trend. There will be hopes will go up, hopes will come down. and stuff like that. Maybe, GST happening, not happening, whatever. What are for example, suppose there's a liquidity, massive injection of liquidity in China. Should you go around buying metals? So these things will keep happening both in India and abroad, and therefore in 2016, it's very important to keep the big picture in mind, that there's transformation happening. There are large segments like banking, auto and all, which are basically rate sensitive, where credit growth will be the key. So, even if you leave alone all these NPAs and other stories, if you just concentrate on credit growth, that's the big story. So invest in banks, not because, NPAs are coming down. That's a smaller story. The bigger story is credit growth. So I think keep to the big picture and don't get confused by the contra trends that will keep happening.
Actually, Nandan, at the end of the State Bank of India results press conference, Mrs. Bhattacharya actually said that she sees a 14% credit growth, and that's a big base. Do you think, therefore, that you're seeing credit offtake very soon, in a quarter or so?
That's it. We're not seeing it yet, but the signs are there. Because, now the framework is in place for credit growth to start. And what had happened so far were promoters obviously were a bit anxious in terms of what will happen, what will not happen. But going forth, if you look at, for example, oil marketing companies, they've been more or less freed. So, pricing was probably delayed because of Bihar elections and so on. So now that, one part is over politically, a lot of things will start happening now. See what they've done the last weekend.
Okay, gentlemen, hold on to that view. We have to take yet another break, but we are back with more questions on whether now is the time to buy the markets or whether markets will go down a bit before investments can begin. Back in a minute with the Axis Capital team.